So yeah, the first piece I'll read isn't in the magazine. It's something I wrote quite recently when I was watching Nelson Mandela's funeral on TV, or I was watching kind of the House of Commons had a day of tributes to Nelson Mandela, which was sort of, they repeated the same things quite a lot, and kind of, I'm probably not the first person to say it, but I'm quite uncomfortable with the whole kind of hagiography of the dead and the way that he was kind of used to further their own agendas. Everyone was saying, well, like my mum's like stepson's milkman one time met Nelson Mandela, and because of this I feel that I really developed my own like sense of social justice or whatever. So I didn't really like that. So I wrote a poem about that, and it's called Rust and Vrede, which is the Afrikaans for rest in peace. So this is Rust and Vrede. A thin white man in thin dark shoes walks stiffly to the stand. His footsteps punctuate the quiet, each breath an ampersand. He shook a hand that shook the hand and was forever moved, a grasp of hands that grasped the hands, that left his fingers bruised. His comments drift across the stage and into no man's land. He knew a man who knew a man who shook him by the hand. Between interlocking fingers, rich milk and honey oozed. The thin man learned of peace from that stiff handshake once removed. He is confident the dead man will always rest in peace, peace deep and everlasting, till the thin man grows obese. He will rest in peace forever, the thin man glibly farts. Eternal rest until the day election season starts. Peace is kept throughout the country by angels and police. Peace unbroken till the thin man requires a press release. They linger yet, the peaceful dead, not suffered to depart, without recourse to iron lung or artificial heart. The voodoo of the PR man makes zombies of the dead. His flip chart is a Ouija board, his cock's blood pencil lead. Brimstone like ash dissolves beneath the intern's ballpoint pen. The dead reborn to lend their voice in aid of living men. Permanent marker pentangles, sketched in Venetian red. Necromanical PowerPoints for board department heads. We only suffer them to rest until their last amen. Then they are dragged from fresh-turned earth and put to work again. The thin man sinks into his chair, his trousers neatly creased. He made a saint of mortal man and meat of the deceased. May your hollow jaw keep flapping, joints grinding without grease. May your grave be ever shallow, you bastard. Rust in peace. So I'll read a couple of my pieces from the magazine now. So yeah, this first one I wrote over the summer, or kind of before the summer, during kind of the end of the Arab Spring revolutions, and just kind of thinking about that idea of what it takes to push like a people or a nation over the edge. And I just read The Plague by Camus, and there's this bit in that where there's kind of trains are carrying the plague victims out of town, and the people are forbidden from going near them or touching them. They're carrying the bodies out to be burnt, but the people like creep up into the mountains and throw flowers down onto the trains, which I thought was a really powerful image. Like the whole book is kind of meant to be about the resistance in wartime France under Nazi Germany, so the image was kind of relevant to the idea of people rising up against their dictators. So this is a poem called Bloom. Dandelions disperse seeds upon currents of air. The plague is borne by rats in their gut, skin and hair. Pustules swiftly blossom on the victims they consume. It takes the desert rose many years to come to bloom. Symptoms include weakness and blood in the phlegm. Gladioli bloom yearly from a thick woody stem. Plague often festers in the uterus or womb. It takes the desert rose many years to come to bloom. The plague is bad for commerce, investment and trade. Azaleas grow in sunlight, dappled with shade. Grave robbers go fat off the riches they exhume. It takes the desert rose many years to come to bloom. Rhododendrons are praised for their heavenly scent. As the stench of moratoria slowly ferments, people wait for vaccines whilst kings place wreaths on tombs. It takes the desert rose many years to come to bloom. A flower without water will wither and die. People without water will not stand idly by. Rage slowly blossoms in the hospital waiting room. After many years, the desert rose will come to bloom. And this is another one of my pieces from the magazine. It's called Matthew 25:40, which is a verse in the Bible where Jesus says, "Whatever you did for the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you did for me." And I think that's it's a thing. It's quite easy to think about in practice. Be like, oh yeah, well no, we should love all the poor people. Like we should really look after them. And But then kind of obviously it applies not only to people that, you naturally feel sorry for, but to, people that you might react more strongly against, sort of criminals or paedophiles or rapists or murderers or whatever, sort of people that we don't naturally have those things of sympathy towards. I think it's actually quite a challenging thing, which is often said in quite a glib manner. So this is a poem called Matthew 25:40. See Christ choking on random hunger, belly swollen like ripening fruit. See Christ soiling himself before the firing squad, pleading with them to shoot. Christ bulimic, racist, Christ insane, slapped pregnant to the kitchen floor. Raped and rapist, killer and corpse, Christ the cultist, occultist and whore. Christ choked by cancer, Christ named nigger, AIDS riddled, his pain absurd. Christ the man beating Christ the child, as his sobs in the night go unheard. See Christ crucified daily amongst us, the mad Christ, utterly undone. See Christ raise the apple to his hungry lips and find it is a gun. So I'll just read one more, which is quite a simple poem. I wrote it. I'm kind of thinking about memory and what it would be like, imagining what it would be like to be old, imagining what it would be like to be young, if you know what I mean. And it's called Like a Shadow of Cloud. Like a shadow of cloud passing over the fields, like a memory of hares running over the grass, like the echo of hooves wild in the meadow, like the ghost of a leaf on a frostbitten branch, like the murmur of grass straining under the frost, like the dreams of a fox hunger mad in his den, like the prayer of a seed in its kernel-tight core, like the whisper of wind in a dragonfly's flight, like the rumour of sun on a robin's red breast, like a shadow of cloud passing over the fields, like a memory of hares running over the grass. Cool, thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Matthew.